disappointed in the very sparse green in the back row up there, starting with Sampson and working over to Priester. You internet guys obviously are made for the internet. But we're excited to start up practice. You know, it's a 7-week kind of program that we've been on with our weight training and conditioning. And, you know, that segment I thought went very well for us. We made the strides that we were looking for in the weight room. And, you know, guys that needed to really address some deficiencies in the weight room and conditioning, I thought did a very good job. Guys that needed to add some weight did. Those guys that needed to really affect some change from a physical standpoint did. You know, there's not a lot of time to work on, you know, some of the things that you want relative to leadership and you know, some of the player development things as they go to the game itself. This is that period. Now we're in a 7-week period where we can start to create some scenarios where leadership starts to take place. You know, bringing your position groups and units together, you know, as the coaches become now much more involved. We go from, you know, 8 hours a week to 20 hours a week. So you can imagine that we can create many more situations where we can see guys grow and lead, and it's an exciting time for us. So these next 7 weeks now, we begin to do a lot more of the building of 2015's football team. You know, when you really look at the calendar year, you know, you got about 26 weeks of contact time, you know, with your football team before you kick it off, you know, in your first game. And so you try to break up the year and look at the developmental pieces to it. And so these next 7 weeks, again, if the first 7 were about weight training, conditioning, you know, composition, weight composition, these next 7 weeks are about skill development. They're about developing, you know, your football team as one, as a unit, leadership, you know, understanding, you know, the important principles of, you know, selflessness. You know, I take, you know, you look at our men's basketball team and how they've played. Selflessness is really part of their DNA. You know, sharing the basketball and playing great basketball where nobody cares who gets the credit. You know, I know that's easy to say when you're winning, but you know, that's what we've got to get to with our football team. And we can do that over the next 7 weeks. So my point is this: these next 7 weeks, the coaches are more involved. We get a chance to develop the player's skill. They get a chance to be in a competitive situation. We've got a lot of really key matchups where we'll get guys that want to compete and be put in a competitive situation. So it's a pretty exciting 7 weeks for us as it relates to that. Then they get about a month off. You know, they get that, you know, 3.5, 4 weeks of May off, and then boom, we get into our summer program, which obviously is a very crucial program where we get a little bit of both, right? We get that weight training, conditioning element, and now with the new June OTA programs, we get some involvement with them, and that leads us right into summer camp. So just as a bit of an overview, I thought to give you a sense of, you know, what these next 7 weeks are. You know, you're really starting to develop your football team in some of those more dynamic areas and the skill development part. So we'll begin tomorrow morning. We'll see what the weather looks like. If we can get it above freezing, we'll try to get outside. If not, we'll be inside, and we'll go Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Our staff has been, you know, hard at work, and we've got our group together, and you know, it's been pretty exciting around here in terms of everybody now is prepared and ready to go out and teach and coach. So with that, I'll open it up to questions that you might have about our football team as it enters into spring practice 2015. Absolutely, you get first question. Green tie. Yeah. No. We're going green tie. Green tie. We're going green. This is St. Patrick's Day. I'm an Irish Catholic.
He was tweeting about a new talent on Twitter. I said I hope it didn't involve singing.
No, it definitely does not involve that.
Okay.
He has many very hidden talents. They're very hidden, though.
Curious, what do you want to see out of your quarterback situation this spring? What do you hope happens with Everett and Malik?
Well, much of the same. Well, let's just take Everett for example, right? We need to see him to continue his development in the disciplined approach of playing the position, right? Taking care of the football. Take the last drive in the LSU game, for example, right? Some of the plays that he made there, poise in the pocket, checking the football down, staying within the realm of the offense. Much of that needs to continue. Look, he's 5'11", right? We're not going to ask him to sit in the pocket and decipher things. We still need to keep him on the move and do those things that fit his skill set. But we need to see a continuation of the discipline and the productivity that we saw in our bowl practices and leading into the game and the LSU game. So continue to do that, continue to compete at the position, communication, leadership, which I've seen all those things. I know Mike has seen that as well. So much of the same. Continue to compete and continue to get better and hone his craft at that position.
Do you want to see a clear 1 and 2 by the end of spring? Are we ever going to see a clear 1 and 2? Is that ship sailed in terms of these two guys?
I really don't know. I really don't know because I think it's going to take us some time to really get a feel for how this competition is going to go. And again, I think, once we see how they're going to compete, I think we'll have a better understanding of answering that question. But, we got to go out. It's one thing to go out there, right, and compete without footballs. It's another thing that, put the football in their hands and go run the offense, and then we'll have a better sense. Based upon what we saw in our bowl preparations and based upon what we saw in the LSU game, I think they're both going to compete, and I think they're both, very much going to be part of our success in 2015.
I know Matt Hegarty announced that he was going somewhere else. Looks like Council's not on your roster.
Correct.
Jalen Brown.
Yes.
Can you talk about those guys and their decisions to move on?
Well, each one of them is different. For Ben, that was Ben's decision that he wanted to move on. He chose not to continue to play, and we respected that decision. He was offered an opportunity to continue to play. He's just not going to play football anymore. He's going to get his degree and move on to the next chapter for him. Ben's a great young man, and we wish him the best. Jalen's situation, he was not invited back. He did not have a spot on the roster. So that one's a little bit different. Matt's situation, here's a guy that, had a lot of starts for us. And, we're in a situation certainly where we had a spot for him on our roster, and we thought he would be competing for a starting position, and he chose to, take an option that is available to him because he's going to graduate, and he's decided to look at other options as it relates to his final season of competition.
Does Nick Martin then move back to center?
Yeah, Nick will be the center, and he's excited about that, and we think that's a great natural fit for him. And Sam Mustipher will be the number 2 center. Tristan Hodge will be our number 3 center. And we feel really comfortable with that going into the spring.
As far as Ishak and Kavari, do you have any updates on either one of those? Are they on a trajectory to still make it back here in June?
I'm more comfortable in talking about those that I've communicated with more effectively, and that's Kavari. I haven't had much conversation with Ishak. It's been through third party, and knowing that Ishak is right now working in his hometown. But I know what Kavari's situation is, and I've had a lot of contact with him. Academically, he's making the progress necessary to be back here. And so I can confidently say, standing in front of you today, that he's making all the steps necessary to be back here and, be part of our football team, this summer.
Is there anybody, freshmen or young players, that really grabbed your attention during this last segment of winter workouts where you say, can't wait to see them in spring and see what they can do on the field?
Yeah, I think a guy like Jerry Tillery keeps popping up. He's an incredibly gifted, physical, young man. Sometimes when you get a guy that's that big and has that kind of movement, you worry about his toughness at times. But when we put him in competitive drills, tire war, things of that nature, sumo, he shows up big there too. He shows a toughness to him. So I would say, Jerry has shown himself to be somebody that we're excited. I think I'd also say we really are excited to see. And again, these are guys that haven't strapped on the helmet or the pads yet. But Tavon Coney, really excited about seeing his what he's can bring as well. Those two guys stand out early on, and again, those are mid-year enrollees. So, those guys in particular are going to be fun to watch.
Brian in the middle. Just back to the fifth years. Are they official at this point? Is it just official pending August enrollment numbers? I know you're a little bit over scholarship limits at this point.
No, we're not official until our athletic academic board stamps them official. So we're still, working under the, wink and nod kind of deal. They've got to go through that.
Does that go past the spring semester?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it certainly would. So we're getting close. Yeah, I think as we continue to have these conferences, you guys can start scratching them off on the list and, reeling them in as we go.
Two other guys, just curious what you want to see from them this spring that are now kind of reaching upperclassman status, Max Redfield and Greg Bryant.
Yeah. Well, Max Redfield, obviously, as you know, he had a terrific bowl game. I think it all came together for him in that game where we saw the realization of athletic ability with football knowledge. And there was a bit of a disconnect there. There was this, really, field safety, range safety, athletic ability, but, not getting that football piece put together. And we really saw that with the physicality. So we would be disappointed, and I know he would be disappointed if we didn't see that. Kind of what I was saying to Eric is that we want to see that same kind of trend that we saw with Everett. We want to see that same kind of trend with Max. So the spring is to build on the kind of success he had in that game against LSU, and that's really the bar, setting that bar and continuing to see that practice after practice, so it becomes conscious competence.
And Greg Bryant also.
Yeah, I think Greg is trust, comfort level of seeing it, doing it, and I think Autry is excited about working with him and building that relationship with him, where trust what you see, and that's always been the thing with Greg, is that sometimes he just wants to do a little bit too much, and I think that's the next step for him, and just trusting it and going with it. And I think Autry feels like, this is going to be a big spring for him.
Brian, you talked a little bit about what you're expecting from Everett. What are you looking for from Malik?
Well, I think Malik has to continue to lead, and he has to continue to show that he has not only game day skills, but the practice skills necessary to lead our football team. Now, look, we may have gotten to Malik a little bit sooner if we had seen some of the natural leadership abilities that he showed on the sideline and during the LSU game. If we had seen those things during practice, you saw what I saw. He was up and down the bench. He was inspirational to his teammates. We want to see that in practice, and we want to see that consistently. So leading his group, being vocal, being consistent, all those things need to be built on a day-to-day basis in the spring. He's capable of doing it. He showed that he has that in him. Now it's got to be on display, both in practice and not just in games.
And any chance that Kaiser gets in the mix there, that he could compete for a starting spot?
You know, I think it's going to be difficult for him, but I don't think he ever closed the door at that position. Really like what he's doing right now. I love his leadership skills. He has one of our groups in our drill set, and boy, he's got great leadership skills. Leading his group is fun to watch him. Really think his future is bright. He's going to have to do some really big things because he's got guys in front of him that are really good players. But I would not count him out because he's really starting to become consistent with his footwork and his mechanics. And that was some of the things that when you don't get a lot of work and he's a little bit longer, you know, as he's a long lever kid, when you're not in a repetitive mode, in other words, if you're not getting a lot of reps, it's easier to get out of sync with those bigger, longer kids. And Mike Sanford likes where he is right now. He's a lot more consistent with his footwork, and the reports that I got back from Mike today is he's excited to be working with him. So we have a really good sense of where he is, and he's got some good players in there that he's got to beat out.
And at middle linebacker, it seems like you have a lot of, I guess, a good problem that you have a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in the competition? Is Grace capable of competing for a starting spot at this point?
Well, that's a good question. I think we're look. One of the things, and you all saw it too, right? We lost some vocal leadership when we lost Joe Schmidt. One of the things that we know we're going to have this year is that we're going to have Jarrett Grace and we're going to have Joe Schmidt. And both of those guys are going to provide a vocal leadership capability on the field, regardless of what happens. Let's say they share the position. I'm sure neither one of them wants to hear that, and I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen, but we've got a very good situation where we've got both of these guys that can help us lead there, and we've got a very athletic young player in Niles. So we think it's a good problem to have. We'll take those kind of problems because last year at this time, or last year during the season, not at this time, we didn't have that kind of luxury. So I think it's all going to work itself out. And Joe has some flexibility. Joe can play Mike and can play some Will too. Not that he's going to supplant Jalen at the Will position. I'm not suggesting that either. So I'm not trying to give you a bunch of hypotheticals. I think the answer to the question is, let's get Jarrett Grace back in the fold, right? Let's get him into the spring. Let's get him repping out. Let's get him healthy and back to where he was. And, boy, we got a good situation there.
Brian here in the middle. Back to Malik and Everett for just a moment. Excuse me. And it appeared in the bowl game, and I'm not sure the right word is labeled or not, but when Everett came in, it was going to be a passing situation. He was labeled as the passing quarterback, and when Malik was the running quarterback. If they're both going to play, is that the way you see it, or is that what you hope that you don't see so that, the defense doesn't know what's coming?
Yeah, I don't think we would want to be considered that way. I think what we did is we went to their skill set, as it related to Malik's inexperience in game situations. As you know, the body of work that Everett had, outweighed Malik's at that point. So we were going to lean more heavily on, the situations that Everett had in those late game situations that Malik didn't have. We won't be in that situation going into the fall. So it'll be much more balanced, much more blended. Now, that does not mean we're still not going to go to what we'll believe to be their strengths, but it won't be predictable strengths.
Over here, Coach. With Nick Martin moving back to center, where does that leave the left guard position? Who are your top candidates there, perhaps?
Yeah, Quentin Nelson, Alex Bars. We'll let those guys battle at the left guard position. So that's going to be fun to watch. Those two guys battling out at the left guard position.
Is Alex going to cross-train because you're a little short on tackles there?
Yeah, we don't feel like we're short on tackles in the sense that we've got Hunter Bivin that can go over at the left tackle position. We're going to move Mark Carroll out to tackle. We think he's got a lot of experience that he can go out there and do some things. McGovern can play some tackle for us as well. So we feel pretty good out there. Now, only one guy can play guard. So, we think later if we have to do some cross-training with Bars, we could do that. But we want to give him a chance to start. So our focus will be, in fairness to him, that he gets a fair shot to be a starter at left guard. So I don't want to pull him out. Harry and I have talked about it, and Coach Denbrock, we do not want to shortchange his reps at the left guard position and give Quentin an advantage at that position. So he's going to have a chance to start, and then we'll figure it out from there. But those two guys are going to battle it out at the left guard position.
One fifth-year senior, I don't think we really expected to be back prospectively. Chase Hounshell.
Yeah.
And you have him now at tight end.
Correct.
What went into the thinking for that move?
Well, Chase knocked down my door, wouldn't leave me alone. Just kept coming back and saying, Coach, I want to be part of this team. I have something to offer, and that hasn't been the case over the last couple of years. I've had fifth-year seniors that didn't want to be part of the team. So when we had guys that, had opportunities to compete and be part of our football team, they chose to want to be one-year starters somewhere else. So when Chase said, hey, Coach, I'll do anything. I'll play any position you want me to play. I just want to be part of this football team. We said, we really don't have a role for you on the defensive line, but we could use a big physical blocking tight end. Would you be interested in that role? He said, Coach, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. So we're going to give him a shot at the tight end position. Nothing's been decided. He's willing to go through spring and give it a shot, and we'll see where it goes from there. So he's been a great teammate, great in the locker room, and the guys really enjoy having him. And we like his team-first mentality, so we're going to give him a chance to earn a roster spot playing tight end.
Outside of these walls, there seems to be some popular perception that Everett really has to buy in to sharing time with Malik at quarterback. Do you feel that way? Do you feel you have to do a sales job with him to come back for his fifth year as opposed to using it elsewhere?
Well, first of all, if I'm Everett, and if I'm Everett, I don't think that he has to accept that he has to share time with anybody. I mean, I don't think that notion has ever been floated to him. I've never floated that. The only thing that I've ever said to Everett is that you have to come in here and you have to compete for the starting quarterback position. I've never once said to him that you have to come here and share playing time with anybody. You need to come in here and be committed to competing for the quarterback position. That's all I've ever asked him to do. So He is committed. He is bought in 100% to competing for the quarterback position here at Notre Dame. Now, whatever that ends up being, if that end result is, as he competes for it, that it means that he's the backup or that he's the sole starter or that he's sharing time, well, he has no control over that. What he has control over is that he's committed to competing for the job. And his actions, what he's communicated to me, what he's verbally communicated to me is that he's 100% committed for competing for the quarterback job here at Notre Dame.
And the most asked question I think we all get here since the LSU game there, because it was such an outstanding performance, especially the physical orientation on the ground, is why can't Notre Dame commit to that style? What is your response to
Well,
that?
my response is that every game takes on a different shape and form. If it was just easy to say that we could play that game and we were going to be defended that way each and every week, you know, you guys could come up here and do this yourself. I mean, but it's a lot more than that. You know, each and every week is a different game plan. If it was a cookie cutter approach where it was just as easy to say, hey, if we just ran that game plan every single week, we would be successful, this would be a lot easier. But take the you know, the basic tenets of football. Yeah, we want to be much more physical. There's no question. Yes, we want to establish a running game. That's always part of what we want to be able to do. There's no question about that. We want to keep the points down defensively. So if you take the way the LSU game went, we want to take a lot of those things with them. But game plans change from week to week. And, you know, we have to look at each week and attack each week based upon what we believe is going to get us a W at the end of the day.
Brian, up here, I'm just curious, with a new staff, how much of this spring is about coaching your coaches for you?
Well, I think, Pete, I think it's always been about that for me. And some of it is more overt. In other words, you're out front of it sometimes a little bit more when you have a veteran staff where you're, you know, you're just kind of you're reminding them. Whereas when you have a staff that you've got some new coaches, you're doing more behind the scenes. Hey, this is how we do things here. This is what I expect. Maybe a little bit more meeting time with them. So coaching the coaches, for me, it just depends on the level that you have. Keith Gilmore's been with me a lot. You know, I'm not doing a lot of, you know, backroom meetings with him. He knows what to expect. I'm spending a little bit more time with, you know, the Autry and Todd in my office. And hey, when you're confronted with this situation, this is how I like it handled. So I think a lot of that happens. It just happens differently with different staff members on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, in those situations, are those you're waiting to see those play out in spring, or are you trying to sort of preempt some of those things and sort of educate them how you want it done?
No, you're absolutely right. You don't. You want to preempt as many of those situations with giving them examples of how these kinds of things occur, and we get some of those examples in our morning workouts, and I'm observing them in their interactions with their players even right now. But there are some things that you just, you know, you can't foresee. But having said that, when you go into the hiring process, you kind of have some set parameters that you lay down in your coaching philosophy, and if they stay within those white lines, you're never going to get into some major issues with your coaches relative to how to work with your players.
This roster, you've got your quarterback, tight end, left guard, are semi-open or open, but is this one of the, I guess, spring rosters where you're more interested in developing the depth than maybe figuring out who your frontline guy is, figuring out who 1A and 1B can be?
Yeah, I think this is the first time since I've been here where I feel like I can go into practice and I can bang around. You know, I can have a Oklahoma drill. I can have tackling drills. I really can go and feels like for me that we've got the depth necessary to go and play football. I've always felt like I'm tiptoeing around this roster in the spring because we're afraid over here or afraid over here. We can go play and really target some of the younger players in certain areas and really let them get in there and get after it, if you will. We've got so many young defensive linemen that we need to see contact. We don't need to see them run the hoop or go over an agile bag. We need to see them bang people. And we got a lot of guys, that can come and do that now in a practice. So I'm excited about that. I know when I'm scripting our practices and putting our practice, and I'm able to put, 9-on-7 and rodeo drills and things like that and 3-on-3s. I mean, that's pretty exciting that I haven't been able to do that. And that makes for an exciting observation relative to the development of the depth of your football team.
Health-wise, is there anybody limited that's new since, I guess, the end of the season that would be unexpected?
Not really. I mean, we've got Will Fuller's going to play with a cast. He's got a hairline fracture of his third metacarpal, but it's not really going to affect him. He's not going to be able to block effectively, but he's not a great blocker anyways. He's kind of happy about that. But other than that, James Onwualu is still wearing a cast from the LSU game, but it's a light cast. Other than that, we're doing well. Everybody's made great progress across the board.
Just lastly, to put a finer point on Tom's question about Grace, when you do an Oklahoma drill, is he ready to do that?
Yeah, he's cleared. He's in. He's going. I couldn't keep him out even if I wanted to at this point.
Brian, over here. So you have some of pretty young guys who played on the defensive line last year.
Yeah.
And some who didn't. Jonathan Bonner, Johnny Williams. What are you hoping to see from those guys this year or this spring?
Well, we're going to move. Bonner's going to play. Our big end position. He's put on a lot of weight. He's. We think. He's up to 272, 273. So he's going to be over there with Rochelle. So he's in a very important position for us. So we really like what we see from him right now. So a lot of eyes on him. So we like Isaac obviously a lot, but going to one of Pete's questions, maybe Rochelle gets 1 rep and Jonathan gets 3. In terms of seeing some of those guys really develop. Johnny Williams, we want to see how he's put on a lot of weight. He's in the 2, I think we weighed him in this morning, at 256. He's probably a little heavy right now. He's put on a lot of weight, and we got to probably sculpt him up a little bit. This is kind of like the first run through for him. But we need to see him now, how he handles that weight through the process. So those guys in particular, we want to see how they handle the volume and the work, because they're going to be banging now with all that weight on them.
And in terms of Matt Hegarty, he's the guy who played all of last year on the offensive line. You obviously have a lot of talented younger offensive linemen. Is that something that played into the role or the decision with him?
I couldn't really begin to get into what his decision is. He came out with a statement. I think you all saw his statement. I gave him the opportunity to be the starting left guard, and he chose another path. That's all I can really say about it.
On your left. With Ishaq Williams, if he takes care of everything he needs to right now, is there a guaranteed spot for him on the 85, or is that a fluid situation right now?
I can't guarantee him a spot. No. There are other factors involved.
And have you found it odd that maybe you two haven't talked a lot, that it has been more of a third party that you've talked to?
No, I wouldn't read anything into it. We've through others, he's he's working right now. He's trying to make some money. He's got to, obviously he's got to think about, right now he's got to get re-enrolled into school, and he's got to get through that process. As you know, there's he's got to reapply and go through that process, and there's some uncertainties there. So he's trying to do the things necessary to have a plan B if he needs one. So he's trying to make some money.
And with 2 scholarship running backs on the roster this spring, will anyone like an Amir Carlisle cross-train, or are you set with
CJ
you?
Procise is. CJ's been playing running back for us. He's been in the running back meetings. He'll get a lot of work at running back. So Amir will not cross-train. He'll stay at the slot receiver. CJ will get quite a bit of work at running back.
Thanks.
Yep.
Still over here, I guess. All right, Coach, over here on your left. You talked when we met on the signing day, you had said that you were going to approach some guys about possibly moving positions. You've talked about a lot of the shifting you've done up front of the offensive line. Is there anywhere else, and obviously CJ, is there anywhere else where guys are either going to cross-train or move positions, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
John Turner's going to play safety for us. So he's excited about getting back there and obviously giving him an opportunity there to see what he can do. We're not deep at the safety position. Obviously, this spring we're not. So we'll see what he can do. Nicky's going to get back into action this spring. We'll limit his contact, but he'll get a lot of work, 7-on-7, non-contact stuff. So, putting John back there, I think that's going to help us. Doug Randolph's going to play the rush position for us. We think he might have a trait that can get after the quarterback for us, so we're going to take a look at him at that rush position, see what he can do over there. So those 2 guys on defense would be new moves for us.
At linebacker, I mean, you've talked in the past about you're going to do whatever you need to do to get the best 11 on the field.
Yeah.
You've cross-trained guys, moved guys around. You're in a situation now where you're going to have 5-6 guys that have started games for you at linebacker. Is there a chance that, if certain guys present themselves, you may have to switch some of those guys around, or are you still pretty set on Jalen at the will, the 3 guys you talked about at Mike, and then James out at Sam?
Yeah, let's be clear, right? James is a nickel playing Sam, right? We're matching up 11 personnel with James. If it gets big, Greer Martini's going to play out there. So Greer's playing Sam. So if you guys are taking score at home, look at your roster as your Sam linebackers are James and Greer. You've got 3 Mikes, and your will linebackers right now are Jalen and Tavon. So there's a little bit of a backup there at the Mike, but as I said, there's a little bit of flexibility there with Joe. So you got 2 deep in a swing. That's where you probably want to be at linebacker, expecting that maybe somebody gets banged up. So.
Sorry, Coach.
No, go ahead.
You've also done that a little bit up front. You talked about Jay Hayes could be a guy that move outside. You've decided to move John Bonner.
Yep.
Sheldon Day's done some things and some odd fronts. Are you kind of the same way there, just trying to figure out who your best 4 guys are? And
Yeah, I mean,
rotation?
like Jerry's going to play the 1 and the 3. Tillery. He's a guy that has that ability to play, with his size, both the 1 and the 3. So, we'll move those guys around and really try to find out what their best fit is. But I think at the linebacker position, look, if you get big on us, we go to Greer, right? We'll match size with, a 21 package. We can go to Greer. If you want to stay 11, we can go with James, for cover down purposes. So we feel pretty good there. If you want to get big inside, we feel like we can match up now, with a Jared Grace as a big Mike, So I just think we offer more opportunities and a lot more flexibility in terms of whether we're 3 down, 4 down, whether we're nickeling out at the Sam. But some guys aren't coming off the field, and one of them is Jalen Smith. That's a certainty. And the rest of the guys are competing, and I think it's a pretty good situation.
Coach, over here, same spot.
Yes.
Tranquil, is he limited at all this spring, or how active?
If
will
it
he
was, if we didn't have a training staff, he'd be full go tackle right now.
be? That's just him. Yeah.
He's a nut. Yeah, I've never seen anybody come back. We had a guy when I was at Cincinnati, Hoppel, who came back and played in our bowl game in 4.5 months after an ACL. He would have beat this kid to it. He would have been. He could play. That's the kind of physical ability that he had, and the way he's rehabbed and trained. He could be cleared to play. That's just unheard of. We're not going to do that. We don't have to win a football game in the spring. We already won. So he's straight ahead. We're starting to move him side to side, but he's doing everything right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a lot of drill work and doing a lot of stuff. He's just been incredible.
All right. And yesterday it was announced that you guys are going to start or play one game against Ball State.
Yes.
Can you just talk about why you wanted to do that, or was it Bill Scholl and Brian Harden harassed you into it, or how'd that unfold?
Do I have to be truthful? I would say that I like Brian Harden and have a lot of respect for Bill Scholl. But we were looking for a game in Indiana we're playing UMass and we're playing other Mid-American Conference. I was like, look, let's just play somebody from the state of Indiana, and it just obviously Ball State made sense. Naturally, let's keep the game in state. So we certainly have a great deal of respect for Brian and Bill, but I think at the end of the day, we wanted to stay in state, in the state of Indiana, and that's why we pushed for the Ball State matchup. Great. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Drive safely. Get a designated driver if you guys drink green beer. All right? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.